show by calling DSM 915-544-5876 or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways you can find us, a lot of ways you can tune in, chime in, participate in whatever way works best for you. That's the real keyword here. Whatever works best for you, as we have Bernadette Bandicolt, the good afternoon, and the Ida Beza Gardner with the hello and wave as well, demonstrating that very aptly already. So that's one of the better places you can chime in throughout the show as we delve into very many subjects today. A lot of stuff going on. Yes, there is the big national news, and we'll give an update on what the current status is of the arraignment, indictment, hearings, those kind of things. We're going to mention it because otherwise I know people will be frothing at the mouth. What the latest updates we have so far into our newsroom is. Not going to dwell on that today because we have a lot of other local stuff going on in any case. As Marky Mandango, good afternoon, and appreciating the show. Certainly appreciate that and all the likes and comments. So we have the latest on what's going on there nationally, but we got a lot of stuff going on here locally, including immigration enforcement actions and another big stash house bust that we will detail, and what that kind of shows is happening or going on in the region, some of the latest numbers that is, as well as an interesting bit of action going up in Las Cruces City Council. I know we don't focus on that as much, but, well, wanted to ask the entirety of it to resign, and more than one person doing that. It's interesting one at the very least to me, but we'll also be visiting with talking about with our K-pop partners with KFox 14, but visiting with El Paso Inc. on some of the big in-depth stories going on and definitely affecting the region, including specifically a national cabinet visit going on in the region more or less right now, and what that could mean, what the possibilities there are, and just a whole lot more details, as well as some restaurant news, some police contract news, breaking down the details on a lot of big actions, and including potential future business development going on in the region. So looking forward to more of that. So a lot going on, a lot of people, windy afternoon on El Rueda. Hope y'all staying, keep the rocks in your pockets, keep it nailed down, because otherwise you might not have it anymore. But also, hello everyone with the rock gun and Calvin Williams waving from wherever you may be tuning in from these days. That's one of the beauties and why we are in all those places that I constantly mention, so that y'all know it, but then also you can get at us just about anywhere that you got signal these days. It's the beauty of the modern world. Though, don't worry, we're still definitely going to be in the traditional signal way on with all of the very many, airwaves that take us pretty far these days. Anyway, a lot to get into today. Calvin Williams pointing out now in the rain in Oregon. Good luck with that. We'll trade you some wind. How about that? In any case, a lot to get into today. So just to get this mentioned and hopefully out of the way for now, as I am sure there'll be a whole lot more talk about this coming later, former President Trump has now left New York City after having had his arraignment after the vote on the indictment by the court there. 34 charges total. I think we're still waiting on more of the specific phrase of them. I mean, of course, the former president pled not guilty to all of them, if they're full felonies or not. The indictment has been unsealed, but it's been in short order before we've gotten on air, even here today. So more details will be coming out about that. But again, former president having now departed New York City back to Florida. He is going to be giving a speech after he arrives back at Mar-a-Lago in Florida this evening. So be sure to pay attention to that. And as there is some commentary about those expectations, to my understanding, having not watched all of the proceedings as much as was able to be viewed anyway, there was no handcuffs that I was seen, and no particular, besides protection, police presence involved with it. So we'll see how this continues to unfold. More expected later this evening. But in very local terms, still a lot going on, including, as noted by our news partners at KFox 14, another bit of DPS action. This one looking like a simple-ish pullover, as opposed to one of the ditching, or as I like to call it, rabbiting type incidents involving there being someone that, and ultimately ends up being shown to have been smuggling someone, then ending up fleeing from police and ultimately either crashing into someone or something. In this case, didn't seem like it. But the bigger news that came out actually while we were on air yesterday, but we didn't get in the mention, over 140 migrants found in 2 stash house incidents over this past weekend, according to the Border Patrol and CBP for the El Paso sector. And so this first one found near North Loop and North Zaragoza Road. I mean, that's a bad one enough, with 51 found from destination points of Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And as always, some of these pictures just harrowing sometimes, just showing how many people are crammed within single rooms, those kind of things. But in this case, 2 were also identified Mexican nationals as caretakers of the residents and are facing federal charges. But then that led to information leading to the discovery of another stash house where 94 smuggled migrants were found. And this one near North Loop and North Carolina Drive in El Paso's Lower Valley, in this case, again, from Guatemala, Mexico, and Ecuador. All those encountered were processed under Title 42 or Title 8 is the information we have so far. So those removals are still happening, but this is, besides another incident of this happening, it's an interesting one to put in perspective how many we've seen so far this fiscal year. According to the new El Paso sector chief patrol agent, Anthony Scott Good, who has been, if you want to follow him on social media, got him on the Twitter or Facebook is actually where I initially saw it, pointing out that there have been over 130 stash houses discovered in our area in the El Paso sector so far this fiscal year, which started roughly October. If you remember, we've talked about that in the past. 1,800 specifically found in this manner. Now, that is objectively a minority of immigration enforcement in terms of just simple numbers that have been seen, particularly those removals, processings at the border, those in custody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that these people were being held not by officials, and oftentimes is the case, for effectively ransom. I can't think of a better phrase to use for it than that, saying that there's been 130 of these such incidents and locations found. It starts, I mean, again, I'm not exactly every week, but I mean, that averages out to more than 1 a week ever since October so far, a couple a week, in fact, if not more. And that's concerning in a variety of ways, and pointing out how much as there is a back and forth on the idea of broken immigration system, border security, etc., that there's still a lot more to be done and more conversations to be had. Now, that's, of course, not the only thing going on here. There's an interesting note from our news partners at KFOX 14 about how I'll just read the article title here. Conservative group in Las Cruces asked the entire city council to resign. Some of the issues not totally clear there, and I will admit I'm not as up on Las Cruces City Council as I am on, say, El Paso City Council, but there is an interesting back and forth noted by our news partners there at KFOX 14, including one quote from someone speaking during the meeting, quote, "Nothing in my background prepared me for a city with a government scornful of its citizens." And there was back and forth there on it as well, some saying that they supported the Las Cruces City Council. But of course, there's been a lot of different issues that have been addressed by the Las Cruces City Council, including, is what comes to mind here. What's noted in the article is a road renaming, potentially, but previously there has been, say, minimum wage efforts in New Mexico, or specifically in Las Cruces, and just a whole lot of other issues. They deal with a lot of other parts of it, a lot of different issues than we do necessarily in El Paso. So that's an interesting one. Not totally clear on those issues. So if anyone was up there in the Las Cruces area, would love to actually hear from you on your perspective on what's going on in that city council arena. But in the meantime, we got a lot more to talk about what's going on here in the borderland, and with visits happening in the area, again, in the land of enchantment, specifically with U.S. Transportation Secretary making a visit to NMSU, and more visits happening there. So we're going to be talking more about that, as well as some other big business items, including that collective bargaining agreement between the city of El Paso and the police department and the officers union, etc., when we visit next segments with El Paso Inc. Robbie Gray, editor of the same. A lot of comments coming in already. Marky Mandingo saying, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, "My house wasn't so messy I would use it as a stash house, like stashing Clorox and other cleaning supplies." Different kind of stashing, I'm gonna say. And Angel Rueda saying, "Unfortunately, it's easy money for these punks. The real bad guys rarely get caught." Yeah, the upper level dudes that are further coordinating this, yeah, this doesn't just pop up. This is mushroom is a decent approximation kind of situation, because the thing about mushrooms is we see what are called the fruiting bodies, the parts that pop up, but that's not the bulk of the actual organism we're referring to there, because the mycelium, the part that is then spread about and dispersed under the ground, that's the majority of it. So that's kind of what you got to do. And as Calvin Williams, follow the money. Yeah, would love to see more of that kind of enforcement, though I'm positive it immediately leads across international boundaries and therefore can be confounded more easily than otherwise. But that's a lot more that we'll be getting into. Again, going to take that next break right now. You are tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, coming out of this break, talking more about some of those national visits and other processes going through in the area with El Paso Inc., delving into some of the big stories affecting the region at the moment and recently. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso police responding to an accident southbound Joe Battle at Edgemere. A disabled truck's blocking the right shoulder in the lower valley on Loop 375 at North Loop Drive. Injury accident eastbound Pelicano at Zaragoza. Schuster Avenue just south of UTEP at Hawthorne Street. An accident reported. And Mesa Street is slow from the downtown exits Wyoming up to Desert Boulevard with 5-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
What do eggs, the bunny, and other things that remind us of Easter have to do with the holiday? We'll have the story of our Easter traditions. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You probably already know that Rosetta Stone is one of the best ways to learn a language. But did you also know that they offer a lifetime subscription to all 25 of their languages? Dabble in French, try your hand at German, learn a bit of Japanese, or even explore Swedish. And right now, you can get 40% off Rosetta Stone's lifetime unlimited subscription. Visit rosettastone.com today to purchase once and learn for life. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Okay, so we have the car payment, the rent, utilities,
and the repair bill.
What should we do?
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, we could have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of conversations going on over there, including Calvin Williams asking specifically on the point we made right at the end of the last segment involving the cartels and such. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one while watching TV. decent way to do it. Can't we find a way to justify going after the cartels on the other side of the border? Short answer, yes and no, which is not satisfying and no. Yes, there are certain enforcement actions, seizing of assets, freezing, etc., that can happen on this side. But if there are larger infrastructure still across international borders, it does require either agreements or just ignoring that and going along with the consequences that come with it. There have been some of those conversations involving the idea of drone strikes, or up to and including the idea of drone strikes, which goes very far indeed. But essentially, the way it usually ends up working is that if the other foreign nation involved in this is not willing to play ball, things can be hampered, which is why the intransigents, I would call it, or just loose cannon status of AMLO, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, president of Mexico in general, has not been helpful in that sphere. Among other things, recently calling the drug issue just an American problem. Yeah, anyway, we'll talk more about that, I'm sure. But in the meantime, we do have joining us in studio right now, Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., checking in with him on some of the big stories going on and affecting the region as we do most first Tuesdays of the month, which is absolutely something that we are, well, that's the time frame right now. And so speaking of things going on right now, we do have a national cabinet visit actually happening in the larger region, specifically U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg arrived in Albuquerque, but he's going to be coming through more directly, like our immediate broadcast area, among other things, as of the next couple of days or so, right?
Yes, he's in the region today and tomorrow on a bit of a mission, a national tour to tout the Biden administration's infrastructure investment around the country.
So that has, the infrastructure investment plan, all these different acronyms have been going around. This is as part of it. So there's a lot of money up for grabs here. Some of it has already been talking about being allocated to this area in various ways, but I don't think anyone who has been on the roadways in, just call it the region lately, is unfamiliar with the idea of a lot of stuff like that is going on right now, but then there's also a lot more potential as well. And so that's kind of the angle that you all are focusing on his visit here through, right?
Yeah, his visit's significant because there's a lot of federal money out there being invested in infrastructure projects right now across the country. Like you mentioned, his tour follows the passage of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill.
Trillion with a T.
Right, which is a number that's hard to grasp. So I did a little, scientific research on Google. Apparently, stacked in $1 bills, it was stretched 2.7 times around the Earth's equator. So a lot of money for infrastructure.
And a lot of it would get sunk.
So he is doing the tour in New Mexico, in Las Cruces, and in the region here. And like you said, anybody who's been on I-10, anybody who's tried to cross the border at an international crossing here, will understand that there are great needs for infrastructure in this region.
And we've talked about this previously, that there's not exactly something to be pointed to besides some federal studies, et cetera, but that's essentially that recent other national visit at the beginning of the year by the president was both photo op, things like that, but then probably a lot of focus on like what you're mentioning there, kind of an apostrophe, but the Bridge of the Americas and the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars potentially going to be injected in there.
It's about $600 million
in terms of a complete revamp. So you're kind of seeing that through the potential implications coming from that as with this further, because that's absolutely transportation essentially, right?
Right. And with the new trade agreements and other factors, the border crossings are up significantly for commercial border crossings. And anybody who's been around, the spaghetti bowl at going home time has seen the backups. It's gotten really bad. So it'll be interesting to learn if upgrading and modernizing the ports of entry is a priority for the administration. This is something that's been an issue for a very, very long time.
It absolutely is. And so specifically, Buttigieg will be doing some, again, like among other things, talk at NMSU expected tomorrow, and even going through some of the other parts as noted by our news partners at KFOX 14, going through like Deming about, some infrastructure and road investments there as well. So it's a multifaceted trip, but really the infrastructure here in town is actually expected to be in El Paso, or is this primarily just through like New Mexico?
No, it's through the entire region, and don't forget about the airports as well. A big focus of the infrastructure package is renovating, expanding, America's airports. We have a smaller airport here that has a big project going on with advanced manufacturing. There's this big mobility coalition that got Build Back Better grant, you'll remember, to do in part a big industrial project out there at the airport. So I believe that'll also be a focus. And then, of course, there's Interstate 10, 60 years old or going on 60 years old, falling apart, and the state is getting ready to do a massive reconstruction of it through El Paso. And I'm sure, federal dollars will be a part of that. And local leaders are hoping to expand that project a little bit with the deck park.
So, I mean, that's some of the focus, again, y'all doing coverage of this. So this is going on pretty much as we're talking. So a lot to be anticipated here and a lot of analysis, I'm sure, will be coming out of his talking points. That is, again, of the Transportation Secretary Buttigieg. And a lot of maybe like postmortems, I'm sure we'll continue to do on what some of these significant things talked about there are. Because, yeah, as I've put it a few times, just on the bridge issue and the international bridge, particularly, Boda, that's, what is it, the Paisano on-ramp to I-10 westbound. Any about this time or anywhere around it is a harrowing experience because you're getting up straight into the tail end of that line that goes over the flying overpass into the Spaghetti Bowl and then down to that straight shot through 54 South into then the actual travel lanes, which travel feels generous sometimes given how that it's just not moving that much. But then also, I-10, the part that's happening kind of in my neck of the woods on I-10 near the state line with New Mexico, that whole expansion of from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, that's just making that bit of traffic fun as well, is pretty much just prelude to all the rest of it that's supposed to be happening. There was already some road bed work that had happened in that area specifically, so this isn't even as painful as the rest of it could be for the rest of I-10, because within that 60 years or nearly 60 years that we're talking about, there has never been roadbed maintenance. It's been deferred the entire time because there was no option. So that's what I've been explaining for a while now, is that all of the work, including what's been going on with Loop 375, the Border Highway West expansion, even arguably things like McNutt, even though it's a little bit out of the scope, have been all around the idea of I-10 being shut down for extended periods of time in segments. And the one that I think has been the most lightning rod, like you talked about, is that downtown, the I-10 future. I forget the way that TxDOT has put it specifically, but
well, and El Paso tends to get overlooked, with infrastructure funding. So like you're saying, plenty of work for a $1.2 trillion package. It'll just be interesting to see what the administration's priorities are in distributing those dollars over the years. So that, I think that's the significance of his visit here, where he can actually come and see the issues for himself.
Absolutely. So again, a lot of focus probably on the bridge, but it will see in the meantime. Next, of course, big one that is definitely happening in this area in terms of contracts and at least millions of dollars. That is of the new police contract that we've been talking about for a minute, but you all interesting note as one of the last likely major actions coming out of the administration of Tommy Gonzalez as city manager.
Yeah, I think he's got less than 3 months, I think now?
We're talking that late June, early July
so
time
we had
frame.
an opportunity to sit down with him and talk about this contract because negotiations felt a little different this time. I mean, this happens, I don't know, every 4 or 5 years or so. And typically there's a bit more back and forth. I think last time around it was actually the contract was voted down initially and then they go back and negotiate. This time, none of that. It was overwhelmingly approved, and what's in it is very, very good for the police department.
Yeah, we're looking, I think, depending on the level of seniority, there's at least like a 13% pay raise at minimum, including for the basic officers, and then moving on down and increasing more up to I think 17% for some of the more senior ones.
If you look at the entry salaries, so for police officers and detectives, they receive a 13% increase, senior police officers 15% increase, and sergeants a 17% increase. Now, obviously cadets are not part of this agreement, but there is also the city is also looking to boost what cadets get as well. And what's behind this is the department has struggled for a long time to boost their staffing. They're trying to increase the number of people that are the cadets in the academies. It's down to, we were told by the interim chief, to about 20 or 30 people in academy.
Ooh, okay.
So the idea is to boost the salaries, boost the benefits, to make us more competitive with other cities.
Because, and what they are doing for those cadets will get a stipend upon, I believe, graduation of about 10 grand or of 10 grand exactly. So that's significant in its own right. And yeah, once we're at those levels of actual academies, the question starts becoming, are we looking at increasing? Because the exact number I do not believe is publicly released of actual staffing within the police department, but it's said to be around about 1,000 right now. And there have been, in recent discussions I've been able to see within city council, of like some of the actual work sessions, meetings, and this is going back a better part of a decade at this point. They were wanting like 13, 14, maybe even 1,500.
That's correct. So we were told that there's over 1,100 officers in the department. To be fully staffed, they need 375 more. And I mean, this has been true for really years.
Yeah.
So it's something that they have been trying to change and bring more folks on into the department. And I think that why this is watched so closely is that, it involves one of city government's primary jobs, which is community safety. And it is between the police department and the fire department, it's 60% of the city's budget. So any negotiations that happen, the contract has a significant impact on the city's budget, as well as potentially the safety in the city as they look to bring in more officers. So it's something that people follow closely.
Absolutely, particularly since, as you all put it and has been further analyzed, about 60% of the total budget of the city of El Paso goes towards this purpose of public safety and specifically police.
That's correct. And I mean, in terms of the contract, talking to Pete Pasillas, the interim police chief, I think he summed this whole thing up best, and I'll just quote it to you here. As far as my 30 years in the department, I cannot recall ever seeing a contract like this for officers all the way through the ranks in law enforcement. Right now, it is difficult to recruit people and retain officers. This agreement addresses both sides. So they're happy with it.
Absolutely. But also this being one of the absolute, again, one of the last actions for outgoing city manager Tommy Gonzalez, also puts a highlight on the fact that we got these two high-profile hirings that are going to be coming up of both the police chief as well as the city manager. Well, things kind of in the last couple of weeks either going out to bid or some of the initial numbers being accepted for the costs associated with that. So we're going to have totally new players, very likely, or at the very least, new positions for existing players involved in this whenever this comes up next.
Yeah, I mean, significant new city leadership in the police department and for city government. So we'll all be watching closely to see who fills those roles.
Absolutely, and will definitely affecting tone and tenor of these things going forward. But let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Again, joining us here in studio is Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., talking about some of the big stories going on and affecting us here in the region. We got a few more that we'll be getting to, including some business development as well as national landmark mentions. So we'll go ahead and take that break. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Phone lines a little bit later, as we usually do. But in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. Migrants found in a stash house in El Paso's Lower Valley led authorities to a second stash house nearby last weekend. More than 140 migrants in the country illegally were found in two stash houses on Sunday. The first group was found during the early hours of Sunday near North Loop and North Zaragoza in the Lower Valley. Border Patrol agents reportedly received information regarding a possible stash house in that area. More than 130 stash houses with more than 1,800 migrants have been discovered in El Paso so far in the 2023 fiscal year. And WWE is saying goodbye to existing as a family-run business as it joins with a company that runs Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC, to create a $21.4 billion sports entertainment company. In a presentation after the deal was announced, the WWE and Endeavor said that they will cross-promote to drive brand awareness and deepen penetration of their overlapping fan base, more than 700 million UFC fans and 1.2 billion WWE fans worldwide. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Airway, a stalled semis blocking the right shoulder. An accident southbound Joe Battle at Edgemere. Police are responding to a crash on Liberty Expressway eastbound at the Chaffee Road exit and an injury accident eastbound Pelicano at Zaragoza. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. The winds will die down as we go through the overnight. Temperatures are really going to come down as well. In fact, we're looking at 30s and 40s for your Wednesday morning, so have a coat or jacket handy for tomorrow morning. Highs tomorrow only in the 60s, so keep the jacket with you all day long on Wednesday. We'll see a return of some warmer weather as we get back in the 70s by Thursday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast, former President Donald Trump indicted by a grand jury in New York. So does this mean that he can still run for president? Absolutely. I'm going to explain to you what the law says. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
An orthopedic surgeon makes understanding pain painless. It's the biggest frustration that patients have. This is Dr. Pamela Mehta talking about aches with unexpected origins. I see patients with pain in their knees, their hips, their back. Oftentimes, the pain is actually coming from their feet. Bet they aren't expecting to hear that. Those patients are super surprised. They can't believe that the pain in their knee isn't coming from actually inside the knee. But if you think about it, the feet are the base to your whole body. That's why she suggests personally fit arch supports. Emphasis on the personal fit. If you get something basing it just on your shoe size, it isn't going to fit you properly. And if it doesn't fit well, it probably won't work well. Go get arch supports fitted to you. It's as easy as going into a Good Feet store. You heard the doctor. Try Good Feet for yourself with a free fitting and test walk. Learn more at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
When your ride fires on all cylinders, so do you. That's why Napa is on a mission to keep you in motion. With nearly 6,000 Napa Auto Parts stores and over 17,000 Napa Auto Care centers, the Napa Network has everything you need to get up and go. This report is sponsored by Napa Auto Parts.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but also Facebook, other Facebook pages, the YouTube channel Talk El Paso, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're getting into today, but still joining us here in studio, we do have Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., continuing on with us as we do most Tuesdays, first Tuesdays of the month, that is. So thanks very much for sticking around with us.
Good to be here, Andrew.
So talking about a lot of things going on in the region, among other national related issues coming in. Of course, we had that big announcement last week of the naming of Kasner Range and the area that has anyone going along, 54 or I-10, east or west, in between, the gap there. On the eastern side of the mountains, there you start running into those danger, cuidado, explosive stuff signs over there. That has now, after a very long time wondering what will happen to it, a better part of 50, 60 years on its own, right, if I'm not mistaken, now has been designated as a national monument, putting it into the same vein as what now the Organ Mountains are, among other things. This announcement coming along specifically with another area of Native American significance in Nevada. But so this one's again being pushed for a long time just in this region. And we noted, and I saw that some of the signs have already been changed as you drive across Trans Mountain, when you actually see that now announces that you are entering or leaving not just the Fort Bliss Military Reservation and the Hasta La Vista signs that used to be, but saying that you are now entering or leaving Kasner Range National Monument.
So the signs, it sounds like, went up quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. I mean, sounds pretty much immediately
I'm
after
going to
the
miss that old
celebration.
Hasta La Vista sign, though.
Yeah, it's nostalgic, but I'm happy about the new ones, too.
Yeah, so, I think the reason Kasner Range hasn't really been developed, it hasn't had that national monument designation that would protect it, but it served as a training and testing site for the U.S. Army during World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, until it closed in 1966. So there's potentially thousands of unexploded ordnance on the property, which has prevented it from being developed. It'll be quite a project removing it without destroying the environment and landscape.
Yeah, so parts of the issues there, and I think there's at least one movie, I can't remember the name of it, that actually showcases it's set on the idea of involving an army installation, and it actually has Kazan Range as the backdrop. And so what it used to be, for those unfamiliar, is used for everything besides missiles, basically, is the way it's been explained to me. Either small arms, hand grenades, mortars, rocket propelled, or those type of shoulder fired weapons, all the way up to artillery. So there's a lot out there. One quote that sticks for me from a previous video is that previous involvement or a curator out at the actual archaeological museum that is right there in the center of it, right next to the National Border Patrol Museum, noted that there was some years ago a range fire in the area, and just kind of standing at the front door of that area, he counted dozens of explosions. So kind of a case in point.
Yeah, I mean, I think El Pasoans know best for the poppies, and our family has loved going out there. I know they're not there every year, but there have been some years where we've gotten those super blooms, and it's pretty amazing. But over at the archaeology museum there, I think those paths are really the only place that you can walk on it at this point. And yeah, I
Basically.
mean, they have the signs up that show like explosions, like don't leave the trail or you might blow up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think the hope that with this national monument designation, they can get down to work to raising funding and identifying how they're going to go, opening it up to the public and getting it cleaned in some way of the ordinance so people can walk on it.
Yeah, that's been the basically biggest bugaboo of this entire situation, and why it hasn't even been otherwise developed, because if again you think about the area we're talking about, if you've ever driven 54, either way you look towards the mountain and it's kind of gently sloping up until you get into the real major cliffs area. So you might think like, okay, why isn't this covered in warehouses, strip malls, retail outlets, apartments, etc.? And it's because of that blow you up stuff that's definitely still out there and has been, again, reason why nothing else has happened there. And even like the Poppy Fest that certainly happened out there happens in very specific areas, and they tell you to don't pick the poppies because you're ruining the next year's population, but also don't go out to pick the poppies because you might find something that will then ruin your and everyone around you's day.
Yeah, and beyond the poppies, I mean, the site is valuable for, I believe there's archaeology sites on there that some prehistoric that feature cave etchings made by Native Americans, stone shelters built by ranchers. I mean, there's a lot of value to that property there. It's just tricky because of the cleanup that needs to happen on that property.
So I've had some conversations with some of the groups involved, including the Frontera Land Alliance, and they're both very excited about this and very eager to learn about kind of what can happen next. And so we might be having more features of that on future parts or different parts of our programming, including the El Paso History Radio Show. But it's exciting because this has long been focused on, I want to say the last closest time that this came up was probably the end of the Obama administration, when one of those kind of like last gasp
That's right.
signing statements towards the end of the time in office, but it didn't hit that time around.
No, I mean, they had a big press conference. I remember there was a big push. I think Beto O'Rourke was behind a lot of our elected officials here were behind it. And
at that point in time,
no, it was not designated at that time.
No, it was not. So the fact that it happened now here, there's a lot more to come, but its significance is pretty important. Among other things, there is more now possibilities of what can happen, including potential collaboration with Fort Bliss, but that's kind of the question remaining to be seen about what'll happen. I'm assuming in either way, they'll probably have to end up being involved. I'm not sure how many, at least in this country, civilian munitions disposal companies there are that could even contract with that kind of a thing. So
I have no idea.
That's another whole kettle of fish we'll get into. But in a couple other ways, and just on the business development aspect of it, y'all had an interesting note I wanted to share about Chamber of Commerce bringing in leaders of a British trade association looking for opportunities in the region's budding healthcare technology sector. So I'm always interested in seeing what kind of business development is happening in the area. So a minor note there, but hopefully more would be seen, specifically as it was a 20 UK-based companies and surgeons with the National Health Service there. Paul Benton, the association's managing director of international partnerships, quoted as saying, "We see El Paso as a natural step in the health tech industry landscape," because that has been one of the development areas, particularly with, the Medical Center of the Americas, Texas Tech Health Sciences Center, El Paso, all these kind of things. a critical mass could be argued to be starting to be achieved.
I mean, you might think it's a little bit of an unusual connection. I mean, the UK and El Paso,
Right, yeah.
but it really isn't. I mean, this isn't their first visit. There's a good deal of international business that's done here in El Paso.
Right.
And it was a few years ago, I believe, that the British Consul General in Houston actually visited El Paso.
Okay.
And spent a good deal of time here looking at the business environment and such. I mean, there at the time, there was the whole Brexit thing going on. They were looking to leave the European Union, and the UK itself was looking for, markets, and they were looking to do diplomacy. And there's a lot of international business that goes on here. So it does make sense that there would be that connection. So we do occasionally see delegations from the UK come here to El Paso like that.
So that's just an interesting note on them always looking at what is going on with the business development in the area. But in terms about restaurants specifically going on in the area, we mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but feel the need to mention a little bit further.
I don't think there's any topic that El Pasoans care about more, except maybe IKEA, but restaurants, always restaurants.
Always restaurants, maybe roadways, I would argue. But the Luby's in the west side, not too far from our station here. Like, I'm probably sure if I got a good enough bit of power behind a throw, I could hit it from here by throwing a rock. I mean, it's technically like less than a block away. But point is that, yeah, the Luby's there at 3601 North Mesa, closing after this weekend. I'm planning to make at least one personal last sojourn there myself after having been there many, many times over the years.
You're a fan of the square fish fillets?
Fan may be a strong phrase, but definitely having been there a number of times.
So I think most of El Paso at this point knows that sometime after Easter Sunday that the Luby's there on North Mesa is expected to close. We reached out to the owner of the company that operates that brand now because we wanted to find out why they were closing. And what he told us is it's not because of the success of the restaurant. So, I mean, it's always busy. He says they're successful, no issues there. They would prefer not to close it, but they don't actually own that property. They don't own the building. They lease it, and their landlord is not renewing their lease. So that's the issue. The location on Hawkins, though, to reassure your listeners here, is owned by the company that owns the Luby's brand, and they have. He assured us they have no plans to close the Hawkins location
because there was, of course, a lot of upheaval going on with Luby's. It felt, at least it smacked to me, kind of the same way that the whole Blockbuster debate and situation went down, of it being bought out, of a lot of things being closed, and people wondering about the fate of this overall. So we're not quite in a Blockbuster situation with there only being one left in the country anymore. There will still be another Luby's specifically in town, but this one, there would have been two, but business just didn't work out that way.
It's more focused on this location. I mean, this location's closing, but talking to the ownership, they're saying Luby's is not going away anytime soon.
So don't worry if you still, again, the square fish, y'all very focused on. I always liked the chopped steaks. They were my go-to whenever I went there. But one last note I want to make on restaurants and related things coming to town, and this is what I've been aware of for a long time, but now that's finally fully in operation, it may not make a lot of sense to people, honestly, the way this came about, but Hallelujah Barbecue, it's not just the name, it's also about the mission, because it's part of, among other things, the rescue mission of El Paso.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this isn't just a restaurant. It's a mission to restore people's lives. And this has been a project that's been in the work for many years for Blake Barrow, who heads up the rescue mission. And he was trying to find a way to find, employment opportunities for the homeless at the shelter. And at their old location, they used to have actually a woodworking shop where they would sell furniture and stuff, but that had to close. So they took a 100-year-old building in downtown, and they've converted it into a restaurant. Since 2015, they've been doing catering.
Right.
But it opens up this week, I believe.
Yeah, to the general public, so to speak. Yeah, I think it's tomorrow, actually, April 5th, according to y'all. So it'll open 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and hallelujahbarbecue.org. And I remember I had some conversations years ago around about the time of the relocation of the rescue mission in order to make way of the, just cross-referencing topics here, the Border Highway West expansion from where they used to be. Everyone that has been in town for long enough may remember those old, grain silos and grain elevators that used to be there near what is now Spur 1966. But all ended up getting blown away because having some conversations with TxDOT back at that point in time, they were super uncomfortable about having anything near those right-of-ways and the very tight tolerances. I mean, we got 3 major roadways there. You got Paisano, you got Spur 1966, you got the Border Highway West expansion, and you also got the railroad right there. So there's a lot of movement in that area. So it's not surprising to me that ended up getting blown away, but that just led them to pivot when it comes to the rescue mission itself.
Right. So the idea behind this restaurant is the employees are men and women experiencing homelessness who have completed the rescue mission's drug and alcohol relapse prevention program. And on each table, there's a little card that explains kind of the background of your server. And so it's sort of a employment rehabilitation program in the form of juicy barbecue.
Yeah, fair enough. So that again opening tomorrow, actually. So I'll have to go check that out before too long. So those are some of the big stories going on and affecting us here in town. But of course, there'll be a whole lot more coming up and that we'll keep delving into. So again, joining us right now has been Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. Thanks for coming in to check in with us on some of these big stories, among others, as we do most first Tuesdays of the month.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to it every month.
Absolutely. It's a good conversation, and we always appreciate it. So with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now, and we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do at this point during the program. So if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Traffic slowing down already on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriot. 9-minute delays. I-10 eastbound at Airway. A stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. Westbound on Montana Avenue between Yarborough and McRae. The right lane is closed for road work until 5 o'clock. And an injury accident. Police responding eastbound Pebble Hills at Ivanhoe. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin recently met in Moscow as their relationship grows cozier. Rebecca Koffler, military intelligence analyst, joins me to break it all down. Listen to the Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday, but you can listen throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language. Like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right. And they're designed by real language teachers, so you learn how to have real-world conversations, things you'll actually use.
It's incredible. After using Babbel, I'm ready to start having real conversations in French.
There's all kinds of ways to learn. Use Babbel's podcasts or games or videos. You can even join live classes with a language teacher.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Babbel. Évidemment.
Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Haley, quote, Navage is the best thing I bought. I love it. My nose feels so clear now and I can breathe. I've been struggling with a stuffy nose for weeks. I bought Navage and it's amazing. Or this one. I use Navage every night, could not imagine life without it. I have 5 cats, and before I found Navage, I was a clogged mess. Now I breathe so much better, unquote. Those are 2 of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro, do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. A lot of ways to interact with the show, including over on our social media pages. Those dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate, including James Holmes, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Bernadette Bandicole, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. A lot of conversation going on over there, including Trito Sack on the whole Luby's situation, saying, grew up eating at Luby's in Dallas. Many were closed down over there. Our family always ate there in the 80s and 90s. Always loved the roast beef. Chopped steak is great also. I mean, that's just, okay, it's been a minute. I've been there a couple times in recent years, so maybe I'm part of the problem, though not actually in this case, it sounds like. So yeah, a lot of conversation going on there about that, as well as some of the international issues. So let's go ahead and getting close to that meeting for that next break. So we do have those phone lines open if you want to add your 2 cents. So that number to do so, if you're wanting to get on the line, is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We got a lot more to be getting into, including some of the other subjects that we haven't totally gotten to, but a whole lot more going on, particularly for the Texas legislature. Always stuff percolating through there. So we'll do the best we can, but also get to what y'all have to say. So keep that number in mind, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Traffic slowing down already on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain to the 54 Patriot. 9-minute delays. I-10 eastbound at Airway. A stalled semi is blocking the right shoulder. Westbound on Montana Avenue between Yarborough and McRae. The right lane is closed for road work until 5 o'clock. And an injury accident. Police responding eastbound Pebble Hills at Ivanhoe. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Was your home built prior to November the 1st of 1975, or do you have a converted garage or patio? Chances are your exterior walls have no insulation in them. At Scott Heating Cooling, we have a unique and minimally invasive method for insulating exterior walls from the outside. Availability is limited, so call today for a free estimate at 595-4529. That's 595-4529.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
It's time for the Paso del Norte Gun Show this Saturday and Sunday, April 15th and 16th at the El Maida Shrine Temple, 6331 Alabama. Check out edged weapons and Western memorabilia. Buy, trade, sell, or browse the gun show. Saturday from 9 to 5, Sunday 10 to 4. Adults $7. Ages 18 and under $5. Must be accompanied by an adult. No pets allowed. Free parking. Don't miss the original Spring Paso del Norte Gun Show this Saturday and Sunday, April 15th and 16th.
Golden Voice presents Power Trip. Guns N' Roses, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, Tool. You'll have pit tickets for the entire Power Trip weekend. VIP camping at the Safari Tent Campground. All thanks to Golden Voice. Register now to buy tickets at powertrip.live. On sale Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Enter for your chance to win now. iHeartRadio.com/PowerTrip. The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online. News on the hour at KTSMradio.com. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio. I'm Brian Shook. Former President Trump is heading back to Florida after his arrest and arraignment in New York City. He faced 34 charges related to a series of hush money payments. They allegedly involve payments to a porn actress and Playboy model to cover up affairs, and another to a doorman who allegedly had a story that Trump fathered a child out of wedlock. He pled not guilty to all the charges. Trump said he'll give a speech after he arrives at his Mar-a-Lago estate this evening. Trump's defense attorneys and the Manhattan District Attorney both seem to think they have a grasp on the historic case. Natalie Migliori reports.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg says his office has been investigating this case since he first entered his post.
I don't bring cases prior to a thorough and rigorous investigation. Now, having done so, the case has been brought.
Trump's defense team is denouncing the charges.
They said that this was a false business record entry to aid and abet another crime without saying what the other crime was.
Bragg alleges Trump made hush money payments to kill negative information before the 2016 election, while also falsifying how that money was accounted for. I'm Natalie Migliori, New York.
Nashville police officers who responded to last week's deadly school shooting are speaking publicly about the incident. Officer Rex Engelbert explained he was not stationed near the Covenant School and just happened to be passing through the area when the call came in.
I really had no business being where I was. I think you can call it fate or God or whatever you want, but I can't count on both my hands the irregularities that put me in that position.
He, along with Sergeant Jeff Mathis and Detective Mike Colazzo, were the first officers to make contact with the shooter. The attack claimed the lives of 6 people. Lawyers for the journalist detained in Russia are visiting him for the first time. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Today marks the 55th anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
The civil rights leader was shot to death at the age of 39 at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis.
Martin Luther King Jr. was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee, shot in the face as he stood alone on the balcony of his hotel room. He died in a hospital an hour later.
He left behind his wife, Coretta Scott King, and 4 children, including Martin III, who remembered that night.
I was hoping that it was a dream, but obviously it became very true.
Just the night before, King gave what sounded like a chilling prophecy of what was to come just hours later.
And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
I'm Michael Kastner.
Finland is joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization as its 31st member. The move has prompted warnings from Russia that it will seek to bolster its defenses in response. With the addition of Finland, the length of Russia's border with NATO member states is doubling just over a year after President Vladimir Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine. NASA is taking the wraps off the crew for the Artemis 2 mission, which will fly around the moon. One of them is Christina Koch, who's a former Girl Scout.
We're thrilled for the representation, and we know that it's going to make a big difference to millions of girls.
Sarah Carlson is with the Girl Scouts of Southwest Texas. She says they spend a lot of time teaching science and technology. This week's announcement is proof that their girls can do anything when they put their minds to it. The release date for the upcoming John Wick spin-off film starring Ana de Armas is being announced. The movie is called Ballerina and will get the big screen treatment on June 7th, 2024. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Check. That's check. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
It's Elliot in the morning.
Rover's Morning Glory.
Booker and Stryker.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
Alter Ego, are you ready?
All of the best free curated playlists.
Nobody does it better.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
We're the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet?
Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have anybody to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in and chiming in over there, including over on the YouTube, Robert Gable, Tritasek, and Juans, as well as a lot of people dropping those likes and reacts on the Facebook page. Matt Olson, James Holmes, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Bernadette Bandicole, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. And John Brazelton with an interesting suggestion for how to deal with Casna Range and the removal of unexploded ordnance out there, saying Duck Dynasty is a TV program where they hunt for metal items using metal detectors. Hire them to clear Casna Range and make a TV program out of it. Ooh, that's I don't know how much you like or don't like the Duck Dynasty guys if you're putting it that way. Anyway, but a lot more conversations coming in, including some of the national things that are definitely going on, and there's part of our news updates. We chump them to talk about, among other things, but we got a lot of stuff going on in the local region, including some of those immigration enforcement questions. Believe it was, we can find the right comment here, Ed Clore mentioned about cross-border enforcement earlier, saying a DPS trooper chased someone across the bridge and arrested them. That was the initial story, but some of the further details that came out is that trooper ended up being maybe not fully but effectively detained by Mexican officials in the aftermath of that, and the person that was seeking to be arrested, or that they were chasing in any case, ended up either being released or into Mexican custody. So just because it happened doesn't mean it works out well or accurately or even in a good way. I'm just going to say it that way. So on the whole cross-border enforcement, particularly of immigration and cartels, international criminal organizations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, short answer, best one I can come up with anyway, is that got to get the government of Mexico to want to play ball with that as well, which seems to be one of the biggest issues at this point in time. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not interested at all locally in any way, shape, or form about the drone strike possibility that has been brought up, but do feel like there are other things that could be done, even just like in enforcement. Yeah, but that conversation seems to have stalled a bit. Anyway, we have those phone lines open. If y'all wanted to get on the line, add your 2 cents. Of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. The other day, Nancy Pelosi said something that find out what you think about it. Trump now has a chance to exercise his right to prove his innocence. Is there a problem with that statement?
I would imagine so, particularly since the whole innocent until proven guilty kind of concept.
Yeah, I think so. One other thing, Raul, Eric, and Messiah Frankie have all called and celebrated for the arrest of Donald Trump for at best questionable charges, probably none rising to actual criminal offenses. And Raul was even calling the other day, I think he was saying, let's lock him up, as a counter to when Republicans were saying lock her up,
right,
referring to Hillary Clinton. Now, we know today what they want to lock Donald Trump up for, which doesn't amount to a whole lot. But Hillary Clinton actually did have cause for those calls. I sort of remember a thing with her ties to the Clinton Foundation for helping in developing the Skolkovo project that developed the Silicon Valley area in Russia that gave rise to Russia developing the supersonic missile that they are now threatening the rest with now. I think that probably might have been treason, and links to the Rosatom corporation that led them to Russia acquiring U.S. uranium in the Uranium One scandal. I think that was probably close to treason also. Also, the connection of Hillary Clinton with in the interference of the 2016 election through the opposition research effort on Trump and her involvement with the Steele dossier, which also showed extensive contact with Russians in its development and release. And then, of course, all the email scandals that were going on. We've got Stormy Daniels and hush money for for a porn star, and maybe possible as a child born out of wedlock charges, and versus threats to national security. Who should be locked up?
And I get what you're saying here, but okay, let me put it this way. I'm not a fan of either sets of chance, just flat out, because as much as, and this is not to say that anyone who is a politically involved person or a national opponent of who has ever in power is immune from prosecution. I mean, if they have done stuff, they should be held accountable for it. But particularly for whatever reason, let's go back with Russia here for just a second. Alexei Navalny is a prime example of someone who has definably been not even just held and charged, but attempted to be killed because of his political opponency to the, powers that be. And so when you start getting into that, and not accusing anyone in this country of having marked someone or put a contract out on someone of just being a political opponent, but just it smacks of failed governments or third world governments or kleptocracies. Insert names that you would not like associated with a government that you participate in here. So whenever it comes to seeing those kind of things, at the very least, the chance of lock someone up primarily because, like, if you're demonstrating against like a serial killer and someone you're saying has escaped justice, that's one thing. But when it's primarily of a political nature, unless there is some seriously overwhelming type situation, I find myself not being in favor of it. There, at least as a rhetorical point, certainly.
Oh, I agree. I don't think that President Trump should be locked up. Hillary Clinton, however, on the other hand, there was a lot of offenses that she was fined for and everything, but they sort of kind of just swept that under the rug for her and everything. One other thing I would like to talk to people about. I recommend very strongly that you look at the links on the internet about Proposition K.
Oh, sure.
And Sunrise El Paso and the Echo Health group. They are saying on a lot of their videos that they are hoping that there will only be maybe a 20% turnout of people coming out to vote compared to what happened in November of last year, because then they will probably be able to pass this with maybe 10,000 votes. So if you are not concerned about the effects that their efforts are going to have on the city, I would recommend that you look at what they are actually saying, and then if you agree with me, go talk to your friends, neighbors, and everything, and maybe save our city from having taxes that we possibly can't pay.
I will say I've been seeing a lot of the memes, the social media presences, primarily for Sunrise, El Paso, somewhat ground game Texas. Again, previous guest on the show with them specifically. That was more during, again, the actual signature drive of it. But I hadn't seen that saying, hey, no one's going to vote, so this should be easy, which I am firmly on record as being opposed to. I want everyone to go vote. I don't think that's going to happen immediately, but I'd like to at least move in that direction. And frankly, anyone who would want to put forth an idea of seeing any kind of sweeping change and doing it with only a minority of those willing to turn out, it's a certain amount of you get what you vote for, and if you don't vote, you get what you deserve. But also, that just I'm not in favor of that entire line of reasoning. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, but look at the videos.
Oh, certainly.
That is Sunrise El Paso and the Echo Health people. These people are talking about that's what they're hoping for. They want a very low turnout. If they can get, of those 40,000 people, the young people from UTEP, the young people, throughout the El Paso area that wake up every morning and they're scared to death that they're going to burn up the next day because of climate change. These people, they're hoping that they can get those 40,000 people out again to vote, and if they do, they will have this thing passed if they have just maybe a 20% turnout. So we've got to get out the vote to oppose this.
And I'm posting up in the social media a couple of those links, both with sunriseelpaso.org and elpasoclimate.org, which has some of what you're talking about, and some of the statements have been made, has some of the language there as well. There have been other longer form. You can also go to epcountyvotes.com and see the entire amount of what is being published or being put on the ballot. So that's a good starting place for people wanting to know more about what you're mentioning there, at the very least the organizations, and take a look at them for themselves.
Just do your homework, people.
Yeah,
do your
absolutely.
homework, and then go out and talk to your friends, your neighbors, everybody you know on your internet connections and everything else. Get them out to vote against this thing. Otherwise, we're going to be faced with a lot of people leaving El Paso because the taxes are going to be so high, and we won't. The people that are paying the taxes are not going to stay around and pay them.
Well, I mean, they definitely encourage people to go out and have conversations if they think this is important in any direction with those around them. And I think we'll have a lot more conversation on this before we get even that much closer to the May election there. So do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay. Stay well, stay safe. God bless. And let's go, Brandon.
So again, do appreciate the call there. So with that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now, because we're too overdue, gotten some issues, including those major ones on the ballot coming up. The El Paso Climate Charter certainly taking up a lot of air in the room, but also don't forget there are a number of school board, like a couple dozen candidates on this ballot as well. So this is kind of a stacked election, but the fact that it's an off year election does make me concerned about turnouts, and why I will probably be breaking back out that soapbox more often than not as we get even closer to that. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. We got calls on the line. We'll get to more of those. If you want to get on the line, may have just filled up, but in any case, if you want to keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash on Gateway North at the Hercules Dyer exit is blocking the right lane and causing some slowing. I-10 eastbound Trans Mountain to the Patriots, a 5-minute delay. Police are responding to an injury accident Wyoming Avenue just east of Cotton towards downtown, and an accident reported northbound Mesa Street just before Wrestler at Pitt. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
No, not now. That Sounds like it's going to cost you.
I know what to do. I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, I could have the money in my account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
We see them every day. People driving using their phones. There's a sneak-a-peeker or the fast scroller who can quickly become the fender bender-er, the got-a-ticketer, or the driver who killed someone. Pay attention or pay the price. You drive, you text, you pay. Paid for by NHTSA.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
We see them every day. People driving, using their phones. There's the sneak-a-peeker or the fast scroller who can quickly become the fender benderer, the got-a-ticketer, or the driver who killed someone. Pay attention or pay the price. You drive, you text, you pay. Paid for by NHTSA.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And y'all just really want to have more reality shows. Sometimes it seems like it. Some people keep suggesting them. I think it was RJ previously, and now a lot of people in on the idea of that Duck Dynasty UXO disposal show. James Holmes calling it a good idea, and that it could be the bomb. Oh boy. And I think Mark Mendigo also calling it a good idea. I'm just saying, the way I'll judge this is if y'all willing to volunteer and go out there and be part of the cast for the show. Honestly, there'll probably be a lot more people that'd be willing to do that, so maybe I'm backfiring if I'm trying to make a point there. But anyway, I don't expect that one will happen. What I hope will happen with the whole cast and arrange situation is that there will actually be a plan and an execution of it, hopefully involving like the combat engineers and UXO disposal specialists at Fort Bliss, or like Army Corps of Engineers, something like that. That also doesn't just wipe out those sections. That would be ideal. See what more details come out of it, to be sure. Anyway, get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have on the line with us right now, Raul in the Northeast with us. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Happy Trump Indictments Day. Lock him up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dr. Ben, let me remind you, Trump had 4 years to go after Hillary Clinton and didn't. Now, according to reports, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, retired four-star Marine General James Kelly, Trump regularly wanted to sick the IRS and the FBI on his rivals and foes. So talk about politicizing and weaponizing the Department of Justice. That's what Trump was trying to do, okay? Guess what? I guess they couldn't find anything on Hillary of substance in those 4 years that he was president and had his lapdog Barr at the DOJ as the Attorney General. Now, yesterday you had a caller attack Frankie, and it's the dude who bragged about having a couple of $1 million and proudly contributing money to Trump's campaign. Now, among some of the things that caller said was that Frankie is a name caller and criticizes Trump supporters. I'll remind that caller who has money to throw away on Trump that Trump demonizes people all the time. He called his prosecutor, an animal. Just recently, then he calls everybody he red baits like Andrew. He calls people Marxists and communists. That's an old one. That's an old line. Trump attacks judges, law enforcement, the FBI, the nation's intelligence community, fellow Republicans, women, our NATO allies, but never Putin and Kim, his lover, who he called very smart. Now, next week, Trump has to show up in New York again for the Jean Carroll rape defamation case. Trump has shown up. This caller also tried to distinguish between Trump's personal finances and his campaign. When Trump first ran, duplicitous Donald said he was going to finance his own campaign because he didn't need anybody's money, because he was so rich, and he didn't want to be beholden to the special interests. But immediately thereafter, Trump started soliciting campaign contributions. He is a genius at mining morons with his lies and crazy caca conspiracies. Now, about my fellow progressive friend Eric, I agree with most of what Eric has to say. He's a policy wonk. And about calling other shows, I tried and I couldn't get in. I called both Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity's show and was screened out. They only want sycophants, ditto heads, and listeners who have been Hannitized. And I think I can speak for Eric and Frankie that we'd be glad to debate any three of your show's Trump supporters over Trump's legacy. The winner will. The losers will have to buy us lunch there at Pepe's. How about that? Now, about the vision for El Paso, what are the city leaders' vision for El Paso? Who sets the vision for this community? The politicians who get their campaign contributions for El Paso plutocrats? Is that who it is? And about that ballpark, you maybe know a lot about that. I understand they just celebrated their 10th anniversary.
Correct.
Have they made any money?
To my understanding, yes. I haven't looked at specific numbers, but it's privately owned and operated. Well, not owned, but operated. They are even expanding it with the addition of the locomotive, among other things. So operations tend not to continue if they are ending up being monetarily negative. The cost to the city is a different question. I know within the first couple of years of the opening of the ballpark, there were questions on, is the city itself seeing decent revenues from that? So that might be the question you're more getting at, it sounds like.
Yeah, it is. So are they?
Okay. That one I don't have the recent numbers on, I'll be honest with you. So that would be something we have to look
why
into.
Don't you get them for us?
Sure. As I just said, we could.
Yeah, well, that would be good because, again, that's an example of subsidizing of what you would call corporate welfare for the wealthy of El Paso who want a toy. They got their toy. I've only been to at one time, and it was because a friend had free tickets. My understanding is that their attendance is fairly low. They rarely fill the place up. Is that right?
Well, you're talking about two different things there when you talk about it, because among other things, the opening night was said to be a sellout. Yet if you look in the stands, they weren't exactly full because there's a difference between those that actually show up in the stadium and the ticket sales. So it's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I bet you most El Pasoans don't benefit from that. It's a thing for a very few. Baseball is kind of a slow game. It's a kind of a dying game in a lot of ways. Football is a much bigger deal. And look at the UTEP football team. That's another thing that they should give up on. They're perennial losers. They only fill about a third of the stadium. It's a joke. If they're going to have football, they give scholarship to local boys, the best athletes graduating from Paso high schools who didn't get offers elsewhere, so they can go to UTEP and they can get an education, and they get their families and friends to show up to the losing games. Our guys can lose as good as these guys that bring from outside. If we're going to lose, let's have the local guys benefit from a losing football program. Doesn't that make sense?
I guess so. Sounds like you might be one of them fair weather fans out there, to be honest with you.
I don't care about football. I don't care about sports. I'm not a sports fan. I think it's crazy for people to get all riled up about watching some young guy throw a ball back and forth. You know, it's a total waste of time and energy as far as I'm concerned. It's like, I guess, our modern day gladiator events, but it's ridiculous. It really is that these people make so much money and there's so much hurt in the world, and it just doesn't really make it. It's just so unimportant.
Okay, well, here's the thing then. It might not be for you. And demanding that everything be catered towards you isn't exactly a good way to go through life either. So if you don't like sports, that's fine. You don't have to like sports. But saying, I don't get why anyone else likes sports, that's getting a little bit too close to the, and let me tell you how to live your life kind of reasoning that we definitely, at least I don't subscribe to around here. People like different things. And frankly, if you're that upset about the program, the reason, and you might want to put this in the calculation here, the reason that a lot of college sports programs is they end up being big cash cows for the universities that they go to. They actually are a net benefit to the university. So if you're looking for just total cost benefit analysis, there you go. And with some of the changing stuff coming out of like the NCAA, and all of the collegiate sports when it comes to the amount that is going to now be given also to players. I mean, effectively, particularly for college football, it is the minor league system. There is not there are some of those smaller leagues. Yeah, I've watched some XFL, and I'm sure they've talked about it over on our sister station, Fox Sports 1380. But just to say, I don't like it, therefore it shouldn't exist. I'm very glad that's not how life works. Let me just put it that way. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Appreciate the point in the call for the very many different parts we ended up covering, and I'm sure there'll be more words to be said about similar subjects. But in any case, taking that break, if you want to get on the line, don't forget that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. Migrants found in a stash house in El Paso's Lower Valley led authorities to a second stash house nearby last weekend. More than 140 migrants in the country illegally were found in two stash houses on Sunday. The first group was found during the early hours of Sunday near North Loop and North Saragosa in the Lower Valley. Border Patrol agents reportedly received information regarding a possible stash house in that area. More than 130 stash houses with more than 1,800 migrants have been discovered in El Paso so far in the 2023 fiscal year. And WWE is saying goodbye to existing as a family-run business as it joins with a company that runs Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC, to create a $21.4 billion sports entertainment company. In a presentation after the deal was announced, the WWE and Endeavor said that they will cross-promote to drive brand awareness and deepen penetration of their overlapping fan base, more than 700 million UFC fans and 1.2 billion WWE fans worldwide. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A crash on Gateway North at the Hercules Dyer exit is blocking the right lane and a couple of vehicles off to the right. I-10 eastbound, Trans Mountain to the Patriots, a 5-minute delay. Police are responding to a crash on westbound Paisano Drive at Executive Center Boulevard and a crash with injuries, Wyoming, just east of Cotton. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. The winds will die down as we go through the overnight. Temperatures are really going to come down as well. In fact, we're looking at 30s and 40s for your Wednesday morning. So have a coat or jacket handy for tomorrow morning. Highs tomorrow only in the 60s. So keep the jacket with you all day long on Wednesday. We'll see a return of some warmer weather as we get back in the 70s by Thursday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Since 2010, Blindster has sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters to satisfied customers across the country with 20,000 5-star reviews and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Custom blinds at low prices and free shipping. Blindster.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right, get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin recently met in Moscow as their relationship grows cozier. Rebecca Koffler, military intelligence analyst, joins me to break it all down. Listen to The Truth with Lisa Booth every Monday and Thursday, but you can listen throughout the week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Truth with Lisa Booth podcast.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Who, me? Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of conversation going on there, including Marky Mandingo, one of the more ways I can say it. Let's just say UTEP football, basketball, all for fans, win or lose, who cares? Yeah, maybe a little bit more laissez-faire than I would like. I particularly like going to basketball games, which I have not been to one in a minute, so that's my fault. But, I mean, the football games are good if, like, a full-day event. If the basketball games are like that sweet spot of, like, it's a particular thing that you can do in the afternoon or evening, and it's always a great time every time I've been, so I really need to go back. Anyway, a lot of other conversations going on there. And yeah, on the whole New York DA indictment situation, for anyone that is like just super wanting the former president to go away forever in that vein of things, I got to say, I don't know if this is the one that's going to do it for you. Yeah, there's the potential for there being prison penalties, depending on the level of it. To my understanding, there are felonies involved. But if anything, this may be pushing a lot more. I mean, frankly, I think that the campaign donations alone are an example of how much this is then riling things up. And Trump is still widely considered the front runner for the 2024 Republican nomination. And if anything, so the analysis I'm seeing, including from such, rabidly right sources at NPR, pointing out that there has been a lot of support being shown and even coalition, even as we are not quite in the primary season, even if we arguably are. But said I'm not going to focus on this one too much today, but I'm sure more will come up. But let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call if you want to squeeze on. Full up at the moment, but keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Johnny in Central on the line with us right now. Johnny, thanks for joining us.
Yes, before I get to my subject, I would love to see Raul and some of his adversaries, as well as his companions, you set up something like that, I would pay a pretty penny to see a contest like that. I really would. And as a matter of fact, I would sell some tickets anyway.
Fair enough.
To get to my the reason I called, I'd like to kind of tag along on what he said. The reason was my call, the gentleman who called yesterday, your last caller, saying that, he was a man of means and everything, and he supported the former president. And he said would like to contribute to him and so forth. Well, I have a good idea for that gentleman. He probably won't listen. But if he really want to help the former president out, he could do two things. He could help the former president out, and he also could help the town that he lives in out.
Okay.
He contribute some money to the situation that happened back in 2019. I'm talking about the rally that
okay.
Trump had here. And it started out at 400,000, and recent research is over $500,000 now. He could contribute, but since he said he's a man of means, I say pay the whole 500,000, and he will help Trump and help us. What do you think about that?
I think that's a possibility, if not terrifically likely. I think that's also an important one to actually point out a difference between some of the entities that the caller you're referring to was pointing out between the campaign and the personal. And in that case, there's actually a difference between the presidency and the campaign itself here, because there have been other presidential visits by the former president, Donald Trump, among other things. But in that case, yeah, it was specifically a campaign visit. And I think that's one of the reasons, even if there has been phrases along the lines of all available efforts made to recover that funds, it still hasn't been seen yet because it's a different type of entity.
Yeah, I agree. And matter of fact, I did a little research on it, and the city, made DeMarco at the time was the mayor, and they made an attempt to sue the campaign, but it seemed like to me it was haphazard. And I don't know, as a regular person like you and the rest of us, when we owe our bills, we pay, and we definitely wouldn't. If I was charged $400,000 400 years ago, I'm quite sure someone would hound me down by now and made me pay one way or the other. And here, his campaign just blew it off. And I'm quite sure El Paso is not the only city that was bitten by that. But I'm since I live here and this is my town, I'm
okay, sure.
El Paso, And I just said, people who want to give him money for campaign money, he's a billionaire. I don't understand it. If you want to give some money where it could really help. And I say something like this would be a good idea.
No, fair enough. You're entitled to your opinion on that here. And I think most people are entitled to spend their funds where they feel is going to be the best benefit to themselves or the causes they believe in. So more power to you.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it then. Well, thank you so much and take care.
No, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right, we get to a couple more calls in line here as much as we can. We do have right now John on the east side with us right now. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing. What's on your mind?
Just a couple comments. It's such good radio to hear Raul. I totally disagree with the guy. And sometimes I don't know if he's just doing this to stir the pot. But I've never really heard anybody with such a syndrome, whatever they call that. So he's so triggered. The thing about, and that's fine, he can have his own opinion. He must be so obnoxious nobody listens to him. So God bless you for letting him call every day. Whatever, he's got an outlet. That's fantastic. The thing about the sports thing, and you really answered him pretty well about that. And he's not into sports, and he's like that little skinny kid on the sideline that had no talent, no athletic ability. And he was envious of everybody, and so he's got to trash it. It's like that old saying where, you want the biggest building, you can either build a bigger building than your rival or tear his down. And that's what this guy does to everything. He doesn't make legitimate points about anything. It's all emotional. It's unfortunate for him. It's great entertainment for us on this side over here when we listen to this. But I just wanted to make those comments about the football thing. And he doesn't support anything. Yet he wants all these things to be done. So he tries to tell us how to live our lives, yet he doesn't want to listen to the other side. It's just really a comment, Andrew. I'm just and I know that I'm preaching to the choir to a bunch of people out there that already kind of know this about what's going on there. But I hope he's listening to that, and maybe he'll have a change of heart and soften his heart a little bit about stuff. But that's up to him, and he's got to live with himself. And I'm glad that you take his calls, though, because it's always entertaining. I would love to hear a debate, between you, him, and a couple other people or whatever. That would be awesome. So maybe you should entertain that.
We'll consider it. And I've got a couple of suggestions that are coming through the emails about particular consequences that I'm not quite sure I can repeat on air. But I know that us doing more in-person stuff is definitely of interest. We're maybe getting closer to it. Let's just put it that way. At the very least, I think we'll start maybe with meetups before too long. And if that happens, we'll be sure to put it out there. But having more pay-per-view events, so to speak, here is an interesting concept. But I appreciate the point of the call and your feedback as well, certainly.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one there.
All right, bye-bye. You too, bye-bye.
I mean, there's people who care or don't care or think everyone is triggered or making it an online debate, other further suggestions. I mean, there are people that are passionate about things, and we certainly want to hear different viewpoints, but the ones that I entertain the least involve telling people how to live their lives and saying, no, you can't do it that way, bud. And it's like, okay, who the hell are, if you're paying for someone's lifestyle, sure, you got something to say into it, or maybe could if you wanted to. But if you're just saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't live that way. No, you're not allowed to think that. That's not, that just never flies, because heck, we're obstinate sons of guns in a whole lot of ways, and just trying to say, no, you're not allowed to do that. Like, if you've voluntarily signed up for an organization, religious or otherwise, that gives you specific instructions by how to live, and that's your choice to do it, sure, that's one thing. But trying to put that onto anyone else that is not a member of the same organization, among other things, yeah, Marky Mandingo putting up saying there should be a meetup with all the regulars, the talkies. I go with the skeptic squad sometimes, but I don't know. I guess I'm open to suggestions on what we call assemblages of people. Anyway, getting to at least another call or two on the line before we get to close to the end of the show. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us. Frankie, there?
Hello?
Hello, Frankie.
Hey, is that you?
That's us.
Hello. Are you there?
We're here. Are you there?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. You got that 7-minute delay thing.
Okay.
Let me get right out of the box. What a day. I went through 2 jumbo bins of popcorn. Yeah, of course, I'm retired, so I can do that. What a day. This is absolutely historic. Right up with the parting of the Red Sea, and that fella there with his finger doing the thing with the tablet stuff and some mountain out there. That's what that was, with the Donnie Dotard sitting there in a courtroom looking at his doofus as he is. Boy, oh boy, that was so exciting. Now, having said that, I didn't get everything that everybody was saying. I heard a little bit about Ben and a little bit about you and somebody else.
Sure.
About the situation with some kind of voting for some kind of tax. I don't know if this was the Proposition K you guys were talking about. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, essentially that's what it revolved around, I would say.
That's what you were talking about?
At least in part, yeah. There was some talk about the ballpark and whether it was worth tax dollars. But yes, Proposition K has definitely been brought up today, and we did post up those links for anyone wanting to see some of what is being put forth, particularly by those organizations. The Sunrise El Paso, we posted up some of their links on our social media a little bit earlier.
Oh, okay, I got that. Yeah, like I said again before, I just can't wait. I know you got them scheduled, but
sure.
I just can't wait till you get the smarty pants types that are going to get on your program and explain the ins and outs of what they're trying to do. And I don't want to go, ride over the whatever I said before. But I mean, this is very important, because this is not just as it stands, because the devil's in the details. And this is going to cost a lot of money to do this transfer stuff, at least for the El Paso Electric municipalization of the whole thing on that. So that's what everybody was talking about. Yeah, like Ben said, he was unbelievable. He was right this time. But yeah, you guys got to pay attention when you get out there, read everything, and find out what's going on so you vote correctly. That's what I want to say.
I mean, absolutely. This is any way you slice it. I'm not aware of anyone out there saying, this doesn't mean anything. This isn't important, because it definitely is. It's significant any way you end up slicing it. And I think that people making sure they go out and vote and make their voice heard on this and the related issues is incredibly important. Now, some of the numbers that have come out, I mean, the city of El Paso has put the entire cost of the package to be about $150 million through about 2024. I think Sunrise El Paso themselves have actually put it forth as going to be about $5 million a year as their part of the budget. So there's a lot of back and forth and numbers going around when it comes to this. And so how it'll work, what it'll be, the impacts on even outside the community is important. And it does go into a larger debate. I think it was James brought up a little bit earlier that there is more types of issues like this on other ballots. But of course, the one right here in the borderland is going to be the most important one. But yeah, there's a lot to be actually delved into with this. And this is why we'll definitely be doing a whole lot more onto it. Maybe we could do a page a day and hardly make it through before we get into early voting when it comes to the breakdown.
Well, you got that right. And only because of the fact that this is relative extension, relative to the municipalization aspect, which I talked about before.
Sure.
But you're talking mega millions of dollars in a small little city of El Paso, and the only way you guys can come up with money is through property taxes. You're going to get beat the... But Jesus, for crying out loud. Let me say one more thing.
Sure.
Hey, Richard, you out there with your $1 million under your bed, Donnie Dotard's airplane costs about $4,000 an hour to operate. He needs some help, Richard. Chip in some more money, all right? Way to go, Richard. You got $1 million. How about that billionaire, all right? That's what I want to say.
I'm not going to try to put words in Richard's mouth, but it sounds like this might be in the veins of don't threaten him with a good time, all I'm going to say. Anyway, do appreciate the point in the call.
That's good.
You have a good one there.
That's great. That's good. I appreciate that. You're on top of your game. You are so on top of your game.
Try to know what we're talking about. But again, do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
All right. Take care, Andrew.
Appreciate that. And with that, okay, I think we can squeeze in one more quick one. Again, it sometimes happens that if you're calling in the midst of a segment, you might be online or be able to get on air before we even greet you. Though, if you're on there, hey, here's that chance. So we got a caller on the line. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Eric. And, I wanted to point out, I was following, Trump's arraignment today.
Sure.
And KFOX, the right-wing propaganda outlet KFOX's coverage of it. And they had 10 stories on their Facebook page promoting Trump's talking points, Trump's right-wing talking points to purposely misinform El Pasoans to support Trump and to destroy public faith in our legal system. KFOX is an unapologetic right-wing propaganda outlet with no journalistic integrity. And whenever these big issues on the national level happen, they're always misinforming people in support of right-wing disinformation. They might as well be Fox News or Alex Jones. It really is despicable.
Okay, you're very much noted as not liking some of the coverage that they do, and that's entirely in your purview to do. But just to say, therefore, anything they do is illegitimate, including, let me note some of the things, including the main story. This is the one, first photos of Trump in court released. This and other stories do end up including the entirety of the indictments that are available for people to peruse. So if you're not wanting to agree with them, you certainly can do that. But by saying that, therefore, there's no legitimacy to anything they put out because you don't like what they did here, yeah, we're not going to subscribe to that. Let me put it that way. So appreciate the point in the call, even if it's in the vein that we were trying not to do today, but I knew it was going to end up this way. Do appreciate it. We're going to have to end up taking that next break right now because, I said it was going to be a quick call, but we're basically running out of time. So we got to take that next break. Tell you we got coming up for you later on the show as we come back, or future episodes. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A large fire in Hudspeth County is closed. Montana Avenue, the 62, is closed east of 2775. A large fire moving east has closed the highway in both directions. Watch for an injury accident on Airway Boulevard southbound after Terminal Circle. That crash has injuries and it's causing delays. I-10 westbound is slow from the Loop to the Patriot. It's an 8-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer over 50 different custom window treatments, including faux wood blinds and shutters, all at prices less than retail. Plus, we'll send you free samples before you buy. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
In this week's Marketers Report, Patrizio Spagnoletto, Global Chief Marketing Officer, Direct-to-Consumer for Warner Brothers Discovery, weighs in on building trust.
Trust is a really hard thing to build and a really easy thing to destroy, and we have to be very respectful about that. Our partnership with iHeart has really helped us build that trust and that relationship with the on-air talent.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, conversations, trusted influencers, insights, and data you need to grow. Go to iHeartResults.com for more.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
We see them every day. People driving using their phones. There's a sneaker peeker or the fast scroller who can quickly become the fender bender-er, the got-a-ticketer, or the driver who killed someone. Pay attention or pay the price. You drive, you text, you pay. Paid for by NHTSA.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
We see them every day. People driving, using their phones. There's the sneaker peeker or the fast scroller who can quickly become the fender benderer, the got-a-ticketer, or the driver who killed someone. Pay attention or pay the price. You drive, you text, you pay. Paid for by NHTSA.
Vision for El Paso is having their Laugh Launcher Comedy Night fundraiser on Wednesday, April 19th at Bart Reed's Comic Strip. 10 amateur comedians will be hitting the stage competing to see who can get the most laughs. It's a night full of fun and funny, all for a great cause. Get your tickets now at LaughTonight.com. That's LAFF2NITE.com. Don't miss the Vision for El Paso Laugh Launcher Comedy Night fundraiser, Wednesday, April 19th.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We've covered a lot of ground today, but never quite as much as we expect, and even less on a day like today when, yes, I understand there's big national things and news items breaking coming out, but still a lot going on in the borderland. That's going to continue to be our focus every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. So a couple of things coming up for you, including more focus, of course, on what's going on with immigration issues, what's going on with those economic issues, as well as, Proposition K, the many elections that are also surrounding it. Because, we got 3 school districts that have positions up, as well as a bunch of the municipalities around our area. So this is not a simple one, and we'll continue to talk about that. What's going on with the Texas legislature coming up a little bit later this week. Specifically going to be having a visit again with Jay Ratliff. Get the name right. Talk more about some of the economic situations that do affect us here. So there's a whole lot more that we're working on developing for you. Can continue to do as we do, again, every day of the week that we are on air. So we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are beyond at a time here for this program. So if we weren't able to get on the line, we do appreciate it, but we'll do it again tomorrow. So until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when y'all out the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A large fire moving east in Hudspeth County is closed. Montana Avenue, Highway 62 is closed both directions east of Road 2775 to Loma Linda Road. I-10 eastbound is slow through the downtown area. Piedras to Hawkins is the slowest at a 6-minute delay. I-10 westbound from the Loop to the Patriot, it's a 7-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Records, milestones, firsts, lasts, and everything in between. What happened today in sports history on iHeartRadio?
What's happening, fellow sports fans? It's Andy West. Let's take a look back on this day in sports history, April 5th.